I'm going to mute now.
Okay.
Future voter.
There we go. Exactly. Right. Oh. All right. Well, we've got a lot on our plate. I want to introduce what's going on with our fellows program this year and get input on fellows. But I'm really, really excited that Sue has brought a couple of fellows from our Duluth group to talk about some of the things they've been working on. And I want to also share, I want to hear from them first. And then I also want to share with them before we lose them off the call too, the bigger group that we are starting to organize across the state for our high school, our new high school voters and civic engagement collaborative. So hopefully you all can stay on for a little bit, but why don't you take it off, Sue, and introduce them?
Okay, we have Martin Dahl and Aaron Carlson. Aaron, you look a little bit like you're in witness protection, but okay. You're back.
Your face is dark. We just can't.
Unknown.
There you go.
There we go.
Now we're talking. Nice.
And they we had 18 students last year from one school be interested in applying for the 2 positions.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And because I had worked with both of them in previous experience, I said, turned it over to a committee to read their application forms and little miniature essays. And then they chose these 2 out of that bunch. So
very nice.
Top notch. I have total trust in them.
Excellent.
I'll let them just say a little bit what they've done so far.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Martin.
And I'm Aaron.
So we've just been, starting off the year, trying to get events going. So we have filmed this video talking about how to register to vote, and we'll be sharing it in a period of the school day with the school. So students can watch that and get information from that.
Yeah, so basically we just put together, it's about a 2-minute video, and it just kind of walks you through the process of like registering to vote online, and then on paper, and a bunch of stuff with that. And then we give some information or like the helpful resources like vote411.org, for example. And so, yeah, like Martin said, we're going to be sharing that with teachers next week so they can show their students. So hopefully everyone in the school will get a chance to watch the video. So, yeah.
And which schools are you at again? Which school?
East.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they're both from Duluth East. And then they also, Aaron has done 2 stints of registering voters at our Far West Kids Fest. So 4 hours he put in for that. And Martin does hers this next Saturday at Fall Fest.
Just at Fall Fest, yeah.
Great. So are you able to show us the video? Can we see it? Do you have a link? And
yeah, I can.
Not quite finished, unless.
Okay, well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
we can send it to Sue once it's done, and then I'm sure she can share it with you guys if you want to see it.
Well, that is thrilling because I want to show you where we want to put it, because I'm gonna show you hot off the.
Told you.
Show you hot off the press, sort of, so to speak, is we are going to be, this is not a visible website yet. We are just finishing the structure. But part of our work here, we are working with Hennepin County. We got a contract to start what we've been wanting to do for a long time, high school voters and civic engagement collaborative, which will eventually be statewide. So we will put state resources into it, but we're focused on now Hennepin County. And what was really sort of amazing to us when we did the full list of all the schools who serve 9th to 12th graders in Hennepin County, there's 231 schools. And so a lot of times we feel like we're in the schools, but there are charter schools and private schools, and a lot of schools we're just not, always in. So we're excited to really be able to start to offer opportunities to more and more schools to participate. But we would love to have resources like yours in our high school voter engagement toolkit that we can put in. These are sort of the little clickies that will be populated. So we will have a lot of the resources that you have will be put right in here. How to become partners. We'll have, actually one of these gets renamed because this, we just, like I said, we just are unrolling it out, but we'll have the resource list. So right now, I think one of these got integrated into something else. So it'll be on this webpage. And so we'll be able to have, be able to put your resources up. We'll also be able to talk about other schools that people can help us with. We'll also be able to talk about our meetings and events. We're going to be doing, as part of the collaborative, a full year of monthly programs. And I am going to share that with you as well. And part of these programs will really be tied to, I won't show you all my messing around here, but for example, we are working with Secretary Simon right now so that right after the election, hopefully the Thursday after election, when we can talk to him again, he's no longer a candidate. And we're going to talk about what happened, what happened with the elections. Also, there's the students voting mock elections that happens throughout the state. We'll have the results for that. And so we'll be providing more resources for fellows to be able to every month, as they desire, come and learn more about voting and civic engagement and get plugged in with other youth from across the state. Working with YMCA Youth and Government has been really great, but we're also now connected with the Minnesota, the Association for Student Honor Societies and Student Councils. And so they're also really working hard, and we'd love to do things like, again, there's no reason that every single school has to do a video. If Martin and Aaron have already done it, well, then we could take that, right, and run with it and get students to do other things. And that's really what we want to try and do, is expand our impact within other schools, because we know we're missing so many across the state. So really quickly, I want to show you too, just to get you excited. Well, I'm excited, but I want to show you what our plan is here for our year-long set of programs that will be coming along here. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, I'm just going to show you from here, but this is from our notes. But here we are, we're going to start trying to do year round. Now, part of the challenge with our fellows program is often, when do we start? When do we end? Do we align with the school year? Do we align with what? We generally have said people align whenever they find fellows, you can jump into a track. But generally speaking, we found it really works great that a lot of people who don't have relationships, schools are recruiting in the fall as school starts. But then in January, we will really be talking about high school voter engagement again, because a lot of those successful high school voter registrations happen when they're tied into those senior events. So a lot of good ideas that we'll share with fellows and others from around the state are things like, when is there that, when there's that first big meeting for high school seniors and their parents, and a lot of times there'll be, there's colleges and other people there. It's a great time to be there and get everybody registered to vote, or when people are picking up their caps and gowns and things like that. So there are a lot of people who work on those types of senior focus, even if you're not seniors, of fellows or sophomores and juniors, helping to get that registration done before seniors leave school. But then there's also, we will be really mixing it up this year with the advocacy session and trying to participate too with the big advocacy day at the Capitol. That is an on-site event that happens. It's a big youth event on the 3rd, I think it's actually February 22nd. Maybe something or not that Duluth students will participate in, but we will be doing more. In addition to that on-site day at the Capitol, we're going to do sort of a virtual thing that's statewide, where we invite legislators in to learn from students about their issues. We also will be doing some things like our civic engagement showcase and teaching students how to be election judges. You know, you only have to be 16 to be an election judge. And then we're hoping upon hopes that we could get more students interested in talking with each other on doing student-led candidate forums for school board races. The Minnesota School Board Association has really reached out to us and said, boy, we got to do more school board forums because there's so many more people running and there's so few more local news media outlets. So there's a lot of really fun things here in that we will have really by the beginning of October, Sue and everybody will have a full list of a year long of programming that you and your fellows can plug into as you would like to. So that's a fun new addition that and then starts to bring all of you as fellows in with other students, being able to share your work and what you've done and network with others. So, and hopefully get excited for summer things because we have a lot of activities that we really during the summer that leagues are doing and places where we could, you know, really use students engagement during those summer months too. So I wanted to just start there just because I don't know if Martin or Aaron, if you, we're going to talk more about the particulars of the program and those are things you maybe aren't as interested in, but anything else before you guys sign off that do you want to ask any questions or share any lessons learned so far? I look forward to getting a copy of the video. We will share it around and put it on our Youth Fellows page. We've done some updates to it, but we'll, and let me show that too, because that is fun. If you probably have seen it, but we will be updating this as we go along here too. So but we have left some of these on here, so we'll put it on here. There's people who've done variety of how-to videos, but they all have different perspectives, and some of those real short videos too are really great, where we can say, like for schools, we find a lot of these were too long, right? They're like, well, we just have a couple minutes. So you saying, hey, we did a 2-minute video, I'm like, yay, because I think that's a real resource. Anytime fellows too, if you guys have pictures you can send about the work you're doing out there, send them along. We'll plug them onto our webpage and stuff as well. So so keep letting us know what you're doing and we'll start having regular sharing as part of that collaborative. So
I think we're also planning on like demonstrating how to register to vote during the junior and senior class meeting next week.
Great. Yay.
Yeah.
That's great. You know, it is amazing to me is that it is still the #1 reason people will say, why didn't you vote? For new voters, whether that's new citizens, because we do so much of new citizen registration, and students will say, well, I didn't really know what I was supposed to do. And we sort of forget about that, right? We're like, all this effort to register people, but people often just haven't thought like we have about all the different, there's so many ways to vote, right? Well, I didn't know about going early, or if I go on election day, or what about this or that, and people don't, especially students, they don't want to look like they don't know, you know. So I think being able to show them physically how, and going in and circling the ovals or you know, requesting your absentee ballot, those are huge resources, I think, coming from students about, you know, there's all these different ways you can participate, you know, can vote that aren't just even on election day. But I was amazed at how many in the surveys that people don't vote, not because they didn't care or that they didn't. A lot of people, the second one is candidates, not knowing who the candidates are, knowing what the issues are. But a lot of it was just literally not having, you know, everybody's busy and that you haven't had a chance as a new voter to know, well, where do I go? What do I do? Right. And the where do I go is a big thing this year because so many precincts and polling places have changed because of redistricting. So that can be really confusing to people. So thanks for your great work. So I hope to see you. I love coming to Duluth anytime I can. So So thank you very much. You guys are welcome to stay on, but we're gonna talk about some other things that may or may not interest you. So you're welcome to pop off too. But so I wanted to talk to show you that we have officially rolled out our next program, and so certainly Sue and anybody else who already has fellows, just keep on keeping on, right? And if you've talked with Lorene, I mean, Lorene's on today, and I love that Lorene's on because she really keeps our big spreadsheet of who's doing what and where everybody's at. The hardest part for us in running the fellows program has been that piece of how do we, when do people start? So it's nice to have resources and have meetings, but what we found when we had meetings was there were certain leagues that really were ready to start in the fall and others who just needed the fall to recruit. And then it was difficult to kind of, provide the training equally for everybody. So I think now the idea is really, we want to move toward that notion that, sort of recruiting in the fall, the applications being due in the fall, and then students can form the full year. But goodbye, you guys. But if you have students and like people like Sue, who's so adept at working with students, just some of our local leagues have people who work with students and feel comfortable with it and have relationships in schools, but some of ours don't. Like it's the first time they ever did it. And I want to say in our last meeting on the high school collaborative, one of our partners is BPOMG, Brooklyn Park Osseo Maple Grove, and they have their first fellow student, one student, and the student is the timekeeper in their forums. And I thought that was such a great idea, and they really were loving it and a great way to integrate them into that process. So anyway, the bottom line is throughout our forum, throughout our fellows experience, we find people coming in and out at different times with different expertise, which sometimes makes the management of it a little challenging. But I think having this full year of programming is going to make a big difference, and tying it into the collaborative itself. If you're not ready to participate, right when we still can bring people in, but you will have some standard videos already recorded so that people can kind of slide into things. And so I wanted to take a moment then to look at the new materials that we just posted this week and opened up in our, actually it's on our youth engagement page here. Let me go, it's in a couple places, but we opened it up and it's right on our website under Youth Civic Engagement is the program overview and the grant application. And so if you don't have fellows yet, this is for you. If you're thinking about it, this is sort of the timeline. Again, we're hoping that we can get people then who want to be involved in this year's program, stating their interest, even if they don't have fellows yet, to state your interest by November 15th. And that we would let you know by November 30th so that you can be recruiting kind of, throughout that, those early winter months, so that you would have the opportunity for fellows for that whole election season. And that's what it's, I think really works well, as we're seeing it's difficult to really do a whole new voter registration program. If you're recruiting students to start in the fall and then to get that fall voter registration in, you're just not reaching enough. There's not enough time, right? So if they start earlier in the year, oops, sorry about that. If you kind of get them and yes, it's between school years, but it's really a more full year of all the things that happen in engagement. Now, let's say if you have, a relationship already with students and you want to go school year September to the following May, it's really fine. We're very flexible, because what we want is just for you to have an opportunity to work with students. And that flexibility will just be, I think, easy to manage now that we'll have those ongoing programs done so that your students can pop in and participate regardless of when they come on board. But generally speaking, if you're looking at a new program, we hope you'll use this overall timeline. Again, the program, the features are all listed here. We want you to read that. Our requirements are not huge, right? But really, we need a contact person. We ask you to recruit 1 to 2. We find, just like Sue showed, 2 is great, really. And we do find that students who have a partner tend to complete and do more in the program because they have someone to work with. As students, they're new and they're learning too, right? So they have an opportunity. And so I think, to really be able to recruit 2 is really great when you can. And then it's just doing 1 to 3 activities, because sometimes one activity might be, if you're working really deeply in one school or one project, or doing, like the Woodbury Cottage Grove area did this video in 2020 working with Secretary Simon, and it was a big project and it was great, but that was a big project, right? So they really just did one big project. But so I put, working, doing 1 to 2, 3 things, but it also doesn't have to only be in the high school where those students go. If you're like, we've had students, like an example would be Mounds Park Academy, where, like, our students are really pretty registered. We want to get out to some other schools. And so we've worked with them to, look at other schools that they could reach out to students in their clubs and, offer to help do voter registration with. So there's a lot of opportunities these are just a overview of some things that others have done and who they've worked with in working with their students. But candidate forums, again, are big. And that's an exciting part that we can think of for 2023. Oh, I had forgotten I'd put the calendar right in the new forum here. But again, we ask that fellows, take part in like at least 3 webinars with your fellows. So and again, these will all be webinars other than the physical day at the Capitol. We just had this meeting before this one, and we're going to finalize the schedule and get this out with dates and Zoom links. So the whole year will be out there for you to be able to look at and plan around. We did find, I will say, one of the things we found for sure is that last year we funded the students, we just went ahead and gave the $250 right at the start. And because of just the kind of the bookkeeping function we only have 10 hours a week with our accountant. So we did just sort of say, well, we'll just do the whole $250 at the start. But we really didn't get the final reports that we had hoped to get from several. And I think we decided, there's still that little incentive about that final payment. So we are going to go back to the 2 payments of fellows receiving $100 at the start of the program, $150 after conclusion of and by a final report, we mean it can be a paragraph, right? We just want to know, and largely because we want to brag on our students and our leagues of what they're doing, but also we want to use those resources as part of the collaborative. I mean, if students go through and we go through all of this, we want to be able to, use those resources. So Maria's asking, or Marcia's asking, how many students can the program accommodate? We technically have funding through Rob Schumer for 20 fellows. We did have on a rolling basis more than that last year that we just sort of funded through our general fund at the league. But generally that's been about right. Is to try to get 10 leagues that have 2 fellows is sort of in the wheelhouse. Now, people have come to me from time to time and said, well, what if could we, and we're always happy to look at possibilities if you've got a unique opportunity in your community to serve more. I mean, here's Sue with 18 students. I'm already going, oh, shoot, maybe we got to figure out how we could do some stuff, right? But do reach out to me. But generally speaking, I think 2 students has been reasonable for people. And about 10 leagues. We'd certainly invite more leagues to participate, but we would support 2 students per league. So this is sort of the overview of the grant. It's all out there now, and we give a lot of additional stuff. It's just kind of for those of you who are, looking at what's expected of me and what am I supposed to do as a mentor and a supporter, and what we're going to do this year, which was a great idea. And sometimes I wonder why I didn't think of that before. But one of the things we're going to do is I will pre-record an orientation. And just have that on the website so people can watch it at any time, because it is really difficult to have mandatory meetings for students and coordinators, as we figured out, because of the schedules. It's just really tough, right? With the, after school schedules, and these are busy kids and you guys are busy with meetings. And so we're going to do some of those that are pre-recorded, especially the orientation. They can watch it at any time. So we've gotten some really good feedback and input. Again, I think the idea of more official schedule, so that there's more for those of you, especially who may not have a working model yet for your fellows. You can jump into some of this. We'll have that orientation ready right at the start that you can watch at any time with your fellow. You will continue to be then part and being able to be part of this bigger collaborative going around the state. In Duluth, boy, Sue, I would love to talk with you. We've gotten requests from various people up in northern Minnesota, just community members who say, I'd love to register students up here. What should I do? How do I do it? But, it would be really fun to get some of our students who feel comfortable with that and, be able to support them, traveling to another school and doing a presentation. So we're always open to new creative ideas like that as well. So any questions? Yeah, Sue.
For reimbursement for their expenses. So we pay it out of the league, and then is there certain paperwork that the league has to send to you, or can they just email a copy of the receipt? Or
I think it's best to, because the way we have their sort of $250 stipend, and then we prefer to do any other expenses through the league. I think but that's a good question, Sue, because most of them haven't had additional expenses like that, but those are definitely approved expenses. So I think it would be easier to have them, because then I would know they're approved. And so if you could just send them, we won't send the check to you. We could send the check to them. But I think if you could just say, I think it would be better for like, they would say, these are our expenses. Here's our receipts. We definitely want the receipts. And then you, Sue, as the coordinator, send them to us and we'll pay them. There's no really big form, but here's the receipt for their video thing or whatever it is,
well, like they were going to have, for if people, I don't know, they have prizes, I don't know, candy or something.
Yeah.
So we don't go through our league budget treasurer at all. We just go directly to you guys.
I think that's fine. We normally had said, we sort of had this $250 budget for every league as well for expenses related. So it probably would come from that. But if you have expenses too, and it ends up being more, you can. So I'm thinking this through out loud, as you can tell, because we haven't really had that question before. It's a good one to say in terms of their own expenses. I think ideally it might, I don't know, what are you thinking? So would it be easier to just go through your treasury, or would you rather just have it? Yeah, no. Okay. Yeah.
Only if we have like copies and stuff like that. But so far, I don't know.
I think it should come through you to me because you've approved it. Okay. And then it's like a reimbursement. We can put it on our reimbursement form for our own purposes then. And, we'll try to spare you as much paperwork as possible, but yeah. Now, one big thing I will say as well is, of course, last year we had the big introduction to the youth protection policy and the notion of doing background checks and doing all of that. And so we had 100% participation on the waivers, which was really great. People had no problem with the waivers. Parents signed the waivers, coordinators signed the waivers, and we're just going to go with the waivers. We've gone, there's different cases of thought on this, but it really was difficult to get all of our coordinators to participate in the fullness of that policy. And I think at some point you just have to decide what is important. And so when we talked with both our insurance and the attorneys, people felt really confident with the waivers being successful. I was more concerned that people wouldn't sign the waivers, but people are used to signing waivers now. And that's been our requirement in order to get the check, that the waivers have to be in. So we've had really good compliance with the waivers. So that we won't have that hurdle to go through. Any other questions? Marcia?
Always have questions, Michelle.
Okay, it's all right.
I'm looking at the list I've been making, very mechanical things. And I think Sue might be a really good person to talk with about this as well. And that is the relationship with the staff at the school. If expecting to show videos or whatnot, talk to me about your relationship with the staff at the school.
So us personally?
Both the league and Sue, you've got a big program up and running, right?
Well, it's our second year.
I call that big.
Yeah. Part of the deal is the kids are the ones who contacted the principal. They contacted the teachers. I didn't do any of that as far as getting permission to show it to the classes and have class meetings. And they had a dream of having an assembly and, just you check it out and see how it goes. I worked with two schools, and it's a tale of two cities here. One school east, I have done a lot. I'm on the History Day staff, and I'm the regional coordinator for Northeast Minnesota for that. And I have worked with the AP teacher for junior world history, AP. So she let me into her class to explain last spring what it is, and that's how we got 18 students.
Wow, that's wonderful.
The other school did not know me. They do now because we did voter registration there for them, and they're like, wow, this is great. Oh, this is so cool. And they decided just simply to have a teacher recommend two students. And both students said yes. And then in the August, both withdrew from the program. So now we're at that school has no reps. I will be contacting them again, but these other two are like, well, we can go work with students there. And one of them worked with one of the other students at Caribou, so I'm like, well, that's a good tie-in. But it's a trust building piece. And I think probably the most visible, best thing you can do is the voter registration at gown pickup day. They are psyched for it. They're like, oh my gosh, we're going to be adults now,
Yeah.
We signed at both schools. They had us just right there. They pick up their gown and there we are. And at the table at East, I wasn't even at the table. It was all youth.
Wonderful.
In there and saying like, hey, Jim, come on over, it's time to register. And I'm like, I never would have said that. I would have been sitting there.
Right.
And so it was like 2 days after that I did my promo to the classes about this. And they're all like, is that what they did down in the lunchroom with all, so they knew it, the visibility was good. The teachers, the school secretary, the principal knew about, everybody just felt more comfortable with like, who are these people that are coming into our building? What are they going to do with our youth? Do we dare support them? I think so. I think that's the best way to, or if you've got a youth, like the first youth we had, she, it was a student I had worked with, and she just said, she's at Yale now. And she said, for my college application, they said, I really need some I need to be involved in some community action things. And I'm like, well, I just read this thing on League of Women Voters. Do you want to try that? You know, and so that's how it just got started, was somebody we knew, that somebody, you know, maybe even your league, to say out, does anybody know of anybody that might be interested in this? And then take it from there. And once you're in, I think it rolls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I will add, I want to just throw in too, and then Marcia, you can ask more questions, but really quickly, I do want to throw in one of the things that we're doing as part of the high school collaborative is this master list of all the schools. These ones are just the Hennepin County schools. And this is where, this is Minnesota, the first one, the MEVS, is the Minneapolis election and voter services. And then our local leagues and what we're doing, our state league. And then there's the Center for Youth Voice, their youth in government, their model UN, their students voting. And so what we did was say, okay, of these 3 organizations, who's doing what where, and do we have contacts? Because one of them is, what we find with so many of the schools is that they'll say, well, there's already somebody working here on this or that, right? So we're trying to better coordinate. And it's interesting when you look at some of these schools, like you'll see something like Edina or Edison, like, oh, you've got everybody's working there. But to your point about where, you know, it's like, how do you get into a school or start a school, or how does it, you know, how is that going to work? That we can use a lot of those relationships that are already developed by other people as well. And we want to start tracking that. And so when we start looking at Duluth, for example, I'll be all over Sue about, okay, now again, where you know, who are you talking to? How do we do this? Because it's always hard to be starting from scratch, right? Each time you're starting to build a relationship with the school. But I think those lessons learned, like Sue said, are ones we want to really hold up. You know, there's better times. And we're, with our toolkits too, we're trying to say, if you do nothing else, you know, here's something you can do in 1 minute. You know, it's a school announcement on voter registration day. Here's something you can do if you have 5 minutes. You know, here's something you can do if you have a class period. So we're trying to create some of those resources where schools who want to participate can grab what's of value to them. But I think the big inroads we're going to have, which will be really fun, is with the Association of School Honor Societies and Student Councils, because they really have some really good connections. Obviously, I didn't realize, even as we started looking, that there is a whole statewide association of those. And they have regular meetings. They all need hours, right? It's the same thing. We want to look like key clubs. All of those students need, you know, hours and stuff like that for their, like you said, for their college applications. So we hope to get more students excited. Of course, we only have so much money too, but it may not always have to be dollars in the bank to them. But how important, Sue, have you found the money to be? Do you think that's important, really? No,
but the big thing is to say, this is what you put on your college application.
Yeah.
Under extra community involvement or extracurricular activities, leadership roles. I think that's a big thing to show they're out in the community. They're not just doing stuff. And
Right.
when these 2 kids started telling me all the stuff they're in, I got worn out just listening to them. I was like, how can you even do this? But
Yeah.
I go to it's World History AP in Duluth. I don't know if that's statewide. For now, just to start for my next group. And
yeah. Great. Other questions, Marcia?
Oh yeah, I've got a list.
Okay, you go.
These are very mechanical kinds of things. If a kid is going to attend the Capitol Day, the students at or the Youth and Government Program, some kids are concerned about excused absences. So that's one thing.
Mhm.
I'm concerned about social media. If kids, how much responsibility, let me backtrack. If a kid does a video, my gut says that video becomes the property of somebody or the shared property, and it needs to be pretty clearly defined, because if it's showing up on social media, what are our responsibilities as the league with that?
Mhm.
Which forums are we recommending to be used?
So great question. So I think a couple of things. One is I do think anything they create should go through you and with your approval, right? We still are the quote unquote adults in the room. And it's another good part of the learning is that the reason we got excited, or originally when we talked about this program, was the benefit also of students learning from adults, that they a lot of times, I mean, student voice is important, but there's still people they need to look to help them and guide them. And it's important for them to see that too, that we are all league people are taking an active role as volunteers in their communities. It's not just their teachers, that there are people in the community who care about these things as volunteers. So I do think all of the things they do or create should run through you and be with your approval. And you have the right to say no if there's an issue. I mean, I would say in the 3 years we've been doing this, I've never seen an issue, but it's a good question. What if somebody comes up with something that's just seems inappropriate? It's certainly our program, our rules, and we could tell people, no, we're not going to post that. Now, in the world of just social media generally, it's like, it's just a here today, gone tomorrow. There's only so much you can police, right? Some of it is, it's tough. I mean, just saying this because of our candidate forums right now, and we've already had a couple of issues with different pieces of forums where people take video or take a recorded one, and they can take it apart and share whatever they want and take the context out. And there's just only so much you can do. So I think if you're just telling your students from the start, I mean, these are not students I'm worried about, but I think it's something we could really, beef up in our explanation about social media, that they're working with the local league. It might be more of an issue too, just with the partisan nature of elections, that we could have said more about. But if they're gonna use the League of Women Voters and anything they're talking about, they need to follow our rules and our code of conduct. I mean, that's why that's all in that application, and they need to understand that.
I see, Marcia, something I just made a note though. For instance, in the video, at least in the script I read, they give their school email addresses because it's for current students. However, if that's going to be posted on some other website, they're going to have to take those out. That I would say you're going to have to refilm some of this, because you're not going to put your email addresses, probably not even your last names, in this video. I
Mhm,
know for our national, anything that goes online, it's first names only.
mhm. Yeah.
So for that, to help protect them, I
Yeah.
feel like that's my responsibility, is to say, if you're going to
Yeah.
put this somewhere else, redo it and take out some of that personal information.
And maybe if they want to use a contact, they could use, info at Duluth, like, right, or like one of your contacts with your local league or something for a
Yeah.
period of time. But I think it's a good point, Marcia. Let me add that to my list too, for how to it'd be part of the orientation, is of sort of how to protect students and how to protect the league, both around these issues of social media.
And I'm actually envisioning a film and art festival in the program that I'm trying to pull together, so that it's not only kids who are doing video and TikTok things, because I think kids that sing and dance might want to have a different, or would bring a different perspective to how to vote kinds of things.
Mhm.
I'm also thinking of photographers and graphic artists and having a poster contest, for lack of a better word. And then whose property is that?
Well, I think, I mean, to me, anything that is happening through the fellows program would be property of the League of Women Voters. But I don't know that if there's any, I don't see any problem with sharing property. I mean, it's interesting in this day and age, it's, it's much harder to lay claim to any one thing, right? And I think when it comes to voting, we want to get it out there. So it's not like
Mhm.
we're trying to hoard a resource or whatever. But I guess we, offline, you and I could talk if there's something really specific about, something that you think is really going to be some intellectual property. I mean, for the most part, everything we've had has been a publicly viewable resource, and it's
I just
sort of
don't want something coming back and biting anybody in the
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Okay, how about excused absences? If they're helping on or going to Day at the Capitol or going to a hearing at the Capitol, kids, they make their own arrangements for,
Right. Yeah.
and
So-
transportation, they make their own arrangements?
So I think the only thing that we, in terms of, in the last 2 years, we haven't had any really on-site anything. And even the first year, because it's statewide, the only
Yeah.
thing really that we are sanctioning or promoting is the day at the Capitol, which we're going to do as part of the Youth Day at the Capitol in February. And so I think in that case, all of those, I mean, certainly if there's certain things people do, there's no reason you couldn't excuse an absence as a local league member for something that you approve of that they do. I think if we had a bunch of people that wanted to come down for a day at the Capitol, as I learn more about the Youth Day at the Capitol, we can work out, in terms of reimbursements for expenses. But I don't think we want to get into a situation of, getting hotels for kids and doing, making it a field trip per se. So much we have to talk about that, I guess. If people are really serious about wanting to do that and come from afar and make it, my sense is it would be a day, you're coming up, you're going back. And, we could certainly talk about that if that's of interest. I hadn't really, it hasn't been something that people have really wanted to do in terms of travel out because we haven't done so much, but yeah, we can talk about that. I think that again, the waiver covers all that in terms of protection, but we might want to talk a little bit more about it, that if people think they're going to go, you'd probably have a separate little sign field trip signature in terms of that.
I'm wondering, Michelle, about liability if we're transporting students, because I'm from the St. Peter area, and
Yeah.
I'd prefer not to do that, but
Yeah.
we
And
would need to make
yeah.
sure that we had something very specific and concrete about
I
that.
think, yeah, so I'll try to spell that out better too. I mean, the bottom line is no one should, that is not an expectation of the program that you're going to take everybody on a trip to St. Paul, right? There are opportunities we can provide to students that I think that they could take on their own accord. And so maybe we spell that out a little bit better. We'd be happy to reimburse for certain things, but I think that's a lot. We're not expecting Sue to, pull together a field trip to bring her students down and we also want a complementary activity. I mean, we've said very clearly, we want this to be a virtual opportunity because we want to be statewide. So I think if we have an extra activity is, hey, there's this great event at the Capitol if you want to participate, but maybe we just be clear about that would be on your own. It could be part of your project, but it'd be something you do on your own.
Mhm. So when you say Youth Day at the Capitol, that is
Yeah.
strictly for the fellows.
So there is this youth day at the Capitol that's sponsored more through the Minnesota Youth Councils. It's an official kind of a
okay.
thing. But we've talked with Brendan there and he's like, oh, we could bring all kinds of they go actually to it starts at the History Center. There's actually a whole piece of this at the History Center, and then they walk over to the Capitol. Now this has not been done in the last 2 years. So but that's generally how it's done. And then they go over and speak with legislators, and it's all kind of arranged through this sort of networking with Minnesota Youth Council. So we are talking with them about that. What we talked with Youth and Government, the YMCA, is we could sort of most easily go alongside it and have, opportunities for students that, kind of go alongside whatever NYC is doing. So I'll get more information on what Youth Day at the Capitol is, but I'm glad you asked the questions because then I can say what we do and don't do, right? What the expectations should be.
Mhm. Is this information that would go out to social studies teachers, to government teachers? Is that something that the Minnesota Youth Council would automatically do in addition to those other partners? You
Well,
think?
yeah, I mean, so part of what we really are trying to do with the collaborative is to build more relationships with social studies teachers. And I mean, I love like Sue saying, hey, I've got this History Day connection, and you meet all these great people. And so we want to find these relationships, build on these relationships.
Mhm.
But for our program, it's still, it's small. It's not meant to be, a huge thing. It can be, and I say that really for the positivity that brings. I mean, I think there's just a lot of benefit in what's happening when students are figuring out how to mobilize their own networks of students to get things done, right? That's really what civic engagement is, hey, we all know people. How do we get them to register to vote or get out to vote or work with us on set up a voter registration or work with us on doing a video? That's civic engagement, right? So it's nice advocacy is a part of it, and it's a piece of that we want to restore. But I want to focus more on that, what people can do in their local community, working with their local leagues. That's the real emphasis of the program. We'd like to throw some other activities out there for students who are motivated and want to do that and can see value in it, but we don't necessarily want to sponsor those through field trips. But I think I'm glad you brought it up because it's something we should be more specific about when those opportunities arise.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Another thing is I'm also the co-chair for voter registration. And a possibility that's in the works right now is through redistricting, the polling location got moved. And so we've got people, senior citizens who used to be able to walk across the street to vote now have to go 6 miles and don't think they can do it. The point with my youth is like, if we can get into that facility or the community center across the street to do absentee ballot applications with people, I'm hoping that my youth will help mobilize crews to come out there and on one on two, or 1 to 3 ratio, sit with people, help them complete their absentee ballot application. Martin has already been an election judge for the primary.
Great. Yeah.
And I think we had last year, our fellow also talked with classes about that. I think we had 10 sign up as election judges last year. So whether that ever came true, I don't know. But anyway, that's another way to mobile that we're saying, see if you can find 10 more people or whatever we need to come out and sit, we'll just sit beside somebody.
And so much of this is, and that's what's fun, is we want to keep sharing what's working. We want to get that going out there so that people like Marsha and Cindy, and so you're all hearing each other, what's working, what are ideas, because there is no one size fits all. It really is where I say to everybody, it's where's the energy that you have, you build, and so you build from the inside out rather than looking out and trying to come in. So you want to look at where do we have connections, where's the energy, what one person do I know, how can we get that circle bigger? And that's really the key to all engagements is all of us calling and working with people that we know in our circle to keep expanding those circles, right? Oh
Can
yeah,
I
the
do a
18th
plug
birthday.
for our birthday cards? Yes, this is something our league's done for a number of years now. And we work with the guidance office. We have these birthday cards. They're two-sided. This is one of the older ones because the newer ones have the QR code for Vote 411. So they're more updated. But we get the numbers for how many seniors are in their senior class. And on their 18th birthday, they get the birthday card. They get a coupon for a donut or a cupcake, depending upon which business gave us the donations. And they get an I will vote sticker, and it's all the information about, congratulations on turning 18. It's a milestone, and register to vote and that sort of thing. And the guidance office will go through the records, and they'll figure out who's got the birthdays for each month. They'll date the cards on the envelope, and then they get them to the kids in their classes, their first hour classes.
So they do it. The guidance office does it. Wow.
It does. And this artwork is now available through Kristen, at least for now. So we're sending this out there so that anybody who wants to use the template can do it. And she said she would be happy to tailor it so that it has, the correct information for the local leads. And I imagine the person taking over her role could do that as well.
Yeah.
So they can customize these for you.
Woohoo.
Will you be having, much like the voter service call, a youth engagement team meeting? This has been very helpful. And every time I'm at a league thing, I'm just quizzing people, what are you doing? And I've got great ideas, but other people's ideas are even better.
Well, these events.
Are you anticipating that?
Yeah. So in the if you go onto the application and that list, sort of January through November list of events, all of the events we're going to have as part of the high school collaborative program are also going to include programmatic time to talk. So we'll hook up train, so to speak, onto those meetings. So what we're looking at is an hour and a half time frame whereby we will have our collaborative will meet, like we would have a program. Let's say we have a program about Secretary Simon, like we were going to do this post-election thing. We'd have a 45-minute program. The first 15 minutes, and then 15 minutes before that, we're going to have our high school collaborative, like anybody who wants to learn about, talk about, organize around the schools across the state, and how we're getting together would. And then because we're going to host all those Zooms, I will also say for all our fellow coordinators, if you want to stay on after the Zoom or just log on late, we will do our meetings tied to that. So then they'll also all be taped and all be together. But it's just, that's been a hard piece for me. It's been how to keep you all learning and together and finding a time, and it's tough. So hopefully having that big chunk and having them all identified ahead of time will help everybody put that on their schedule. And we'll also do things like this. We do it like our August Academy and January Jumpstart, where we can, really have an opportunity to keep bringing people together. Thanks, Sue. And be thinking of New Ulm and June 2nd, 3rd. I would love to have fellows presentations. Maybe fellows could come to convention. That's something I do think would be interesting that we could talk about supporting, but certainly virtually we could bring some fellows in to talk about their program, what they've done. I would love to get that as part of the convention program in June. So thanks, Sue. I know you've got to go and it's 6 o'clock, but anybody else? Thanks, Christine. Anybody else have any other questions before we log off? Good questions, and keep asking, Marcia, because you're reminding me of great things I should be covering. So all questions are great, and we appreciate your time. And Cindy, we'll get that artwork into our toolkit for schools.
Okay.
I just love that. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.